Stop what you are doing for just one moment. What you are about to hear has the power to permanently alter the direction of your emotional life. If you truly absorb and apply what follows, no insult will ever rattle you again, no criticism will find a place to land, and no human being on this earth will ever hold the keys to your inner peace. The battlefield is not out there. It never was. Every form of power you have ever wanted, and every storm of chaos you have ever suffered, has its origin in the same place, inside you. That is where the war is fought. That is where it is won. You will never gain mastery over the world outside until you have achieved mastery over the world inside. Every single moment of your life is either ruled by your emotions or commanded by your decisions. That is the entire gap between the powerful and the powerless. It is not about circumstances, opportunity, or luck. It is about who governs the space between what happens and how you respond. When you surrender the control of your mind, you surrender the control of your life completely. The people who frustrate you, offend you, or attempt to humiliate you are not your real problem. They are tests. Every single one of them is a precisely designed test to reveal how much genuine authority you hold over yourself. Anyone can stay composed when the road is smooth and the conditions are ideal. Control is not proven in sunshine. It is proven in storms. Staying peaceful when life is comfortable is not a skill. But remaining steady when the world is deliberately poking at your patience, that is where true character is revealed. Every word that manages to trigger a reaction in you is pointing directly at a weakness that still needs your attention. Every person who disturbs the surface of your calm is functioning as a mirror, showing you exactly where your discipline has a gap. Do not resent the mirror. Use it. The reflection is your roadmap to becoming unbreakable. Here is a truth that most men spend their entire lives refusing to accept. Your emotions do not belong to anyone else. They belong entirely to you. No one on this earth can make you angry without your permission. No one can make you feel small unless you personally agree to the transaction. You are not a puppet whose strings are pulled by the behavior of others. You are the master who decides in every moment whether to react or to rise above. The greatest prison a man can live in is emotional slavery, which is the condition of allowing other people's words, opinions, and disrespect to hold the controls of your inner state. That ends today. Take those controls back. You were not placed here to be emotionally manipulated by anyone. You were placed here to command yourself at the highest level. The moment you stop assigning responsibility for your feelings to the behavior of others, you become a genuinely unstoppable force. Real control is not suppression, it is direction. Anger, disappointment, and pain are not enemies to be destroyed. They are signals to be interpreted. You are not required to obey every emotional impulse that arises inside you. You have the capacity to acknowledge what you feel, extract the information it contains, and still consciously choose calm as your response. That is not coldness. That is consciousness operating at its highest level. Genuine control is the ability to know precisely when to move, when to remain still, when to speak, and when silence is the more powerful choice. Strong people do not explode when provoked. They evaluate. They move from a place of deliberate awareness rather than emotional reaction. Here is something you must engrave into your thinking permanently. No one ruins your day. You ruin it by choosing to let something have that power. No insult can fracture your foundation unless you accept it as a true reflection of your worth. No rejection can destroy you unless you allow it to define your identity. The individual who controls himself is always the most powerful person in any situation, even when everything externally is collapsing around him. That is precisely why the strongest people move through storms with calm eyes and absolute quiet confidence. They are not without emotion. They are focused. They understand that their energy is sacred and irreplaceable, and they refuse to waste it on anything that does not contribute to building them. Control begins with the discipline of awareness. Watch your thoughts, because thoughts become emotions. Watch your emotions because they become actions. Watch your actions because they become habits. And watch your habits because they become your entire destiny. The man who governs his inner world is the man who ultimately governs his inner world is the man who ultimately governs his fate. When someone attempts to provoke you, do not play the game. The moment you react emotionally, you have agreed to compete on their terms and their territory. Instead, pause. Let silence carry the response. That pause is not weakness. That pause is the precise location of your power. The space between stimulus and response is where your freedom lives. The man who has learned to pause rules himself. The man who has not is ruled by every passing provocation. Life will never stop testing your control. The world was not designed to become comfortable for you, but every test it sends is an invitation to grow, not an excuse to lose yourself inside it. The goal was never to avoid every storm. The goal is to remain unshaken in the center of every storm that arrives. Be calm in chaos. Be focused in noise. Stay grounded when the people around you are losing their balance, because when your inner world is governed by deliberate control, no outer world has the power to conquer you. The moment you achieve mastery over your emotions, your reactions, and your energy, you become genuinely untouchable. You stop chasing peace and start generating it from within. You stop demanding respect and start embodying it so completely that the demand becomes unnecessary. You will not need to raise your voice. You will not need to argue or prove. Your calm will communicate more than your words ever could. Your silence will carry more authority than most people's loudest moments. That is the essence of true power. Not dominance over others, but absolute mastery over the self. Because when you command what happens inside, nothing that happens outside can permanently shake what stands within. Control begins inside. That is not just a statement, it is a direct command to your soul. Train the mind, discipline the emotions, guard your peace, and when the world attempts to disturb you, let it find a surface it cannot grip, because nothing can touch the person who has already fully conquered himself. Detaching from reactions is the art form that separates the truly powerful from everyone else. It is the rare ability to feel the full weight of everything life throws and still not be governed by any of it. Most people do not actually live their lives. They react to them. They allow every comment, every criticism, every delay, and every inconvenience to drag them into emotional chaos. One sentence ruins their morning. One unexpected event ruins the entire day. Without realizing it, they become complete slaves to triggers they do not even fully understand. But if what you genuinely want is lasting control and lasting peace, you must develop the discipline of detachment at the deepest level. Detachment does not mean you stop caring about anything. It means you stop bleeding your most valuable energy on things that have not earned it. It means you choose to see life as it genuinely is rather than through the distorted lens that raw emotion paints over everything. When someone disrespects you, you do not lose yourself in the pursuit of validation. When your plans collapse unexpectedly, you do not collapse with them. You remain centered, grounded, and clear because you have accepted one foundational truth. Your reaction is always your responsibility, not the consequence of someone else's choices. Every time you react purely from emotion, you are handing your power to whoever or whatever triggered you. You give them the controls of your inner world without any negotiation. They push the right button, and you perform exactly as they expected. They choose the right word and your peace ignites. They are controlling the most important thing you own without even needing to try hard. That is not strength. That is a form of surrender that most people never even recognize in themselves. Your power begins the moment you take those controls back entirely. When you decide, with complete conviction, that no person, no situation, no insult, and no failure has been granted the authority to govern your emotional state. Detachment is not emotional coldness. It is emotional clarity. It is the capacity to look directly at chaos and say clearly, I see you, but you do not own me. It is the decision to refuse to let temporary emotional states destroy the permanent purpose you are working to build. When you detach from reactions, you do not stop feeling. You begin choosing what is genuinely worth your emotional investment and what is not. You stop leaking energy into situations and people that cannot return anything meaningful. You start directing that same energy into the things that are actually building your future. Life will continuously provoke you. That is simply how it operates. People will push your patience past what feels reasonable. Circumstances will challenge your confidence at the moments when you need it most. But every single moment of that pressure is a lesson. Every irritation is a training opportunity for your emotional discipline. When the impulse to react rises, pause before you move. Do not allow impulse to make decisions that your deeper wisdom will regret. Detachment is the gap that exists between what happens to you and how you ultimately choose to respond. It is the strength to remain completely still when your emotions are demanding war. Learn to observe without becoming absorbed. Watch the insult without letting it stain your identity. Watch the disappointment without letting it extinguish your drive. Observe the chaos around you without becoming part of it, because every reaction carries a cost, and your energy is among the most valuable things you possess. Spend it with the same deliberateness you would give to spending irreplaceable money. Do not waste your energy proving points that no one will remember. Do not chase validation from people who cannot give it. Do not fight battles with ignorance, because engaging with ignorance at its level is its own form of defeat. A man who understands his own value does not wrestle with everything that challenges it. When you detach from reactions, you begin seeing life from an elevated perspective that most people never access. You recognize that the words other people throw at you are direct reflections of their own internal state and have almost nothing to do with your actual worth. Why respond with anger when that understanding already exposes their weakness? Why give your energy to the noise when silence declares your strength in ways words never could? Every moment you choose not to react is a quiet victory, because the man who stays composed in chaos naturally becomes the most respected presence in any room. He is no longer operating from emotional impulse. He is operating from awareness. He chooses peace over pettiness, sustained power over momentary outburst, and focused execution over explosive fury. That is the mentality of genuine mastery. Detachment is emotional discipline expressed in real time. It is the training of your mind to fully see and feel everything life presents, but to respond only to what genuinely serves your higher direction. It is treating your energy like a trained warrior treats a weapon. Never deployed carelessly, never wasted on unworthy targets. The man who reacts carelessly loses. The man who responds deliberately and strategically always wins. Here is the truth you need to hear about people who provoke you. They want the reaction. They are nourished by it. They grow in influence when you get angry, lose focus, or begin defending yourself. But when you refuse to react, when you stay still and composed and completely unmoved, you deprive them of the only thing they came for. Nothing confuses the insecure more thoroughly than the calm confidence of someone who simply will not be rattled. Your detachment becomes your most powerful defense. Your silence becomes your most formidable shield. Stop trying to control how other people perceive you. Control yourself instead. Stop trying to repair what they think of you. Work on how you think when they act against you. Stop spending your fire on battles that will leave no legacy. Save it for the war that defines your entire existence, which is the war within. Victory begins there and nowhere else. When you achieve genuine detachment from reactions, you step into a freedom that most people will never experience. You no longer move because something external pushed you. You move because you made a deliberate choice to move. You stop being emotionally hijacked by the opinions of others, by unexpected delays, or by failures that seem to arrive without warning. You become the kind of person that circumstances cannot permanently destabilize, unshakable, unstoppable, genuinely untouchable, because at that point, your emotions serve you. You no longer serve them. Detachment is not weakness wearing the disguise of distance. It is wisdom operating at its highest form. It is the emotional intelligence that understands peace holds more permanent value than winning any argument. It recognizes that not every comment deserves your conscious attention. Not every situation deserves your conscious attention. Not every situation deserves your full energy, and not every person deserves the honor of your reaction. Detach from reactions, and you will find a kind of strength, the child whose the kind that does not need validation, does not require revenge, and does not seek recognition from anyone, the kind that simply exists in you as something immovable. Because when you stop reacting to everything around you, you finally make contact with the power that was living inside you the entire time. Silence over speech, that is the actual mark of real strength and the living language of genuine power. The weak rush to speak because speaking makes them feel relevant. The wise wait because waiting is where their advantage lives. The loud seek attention because they need it to feel real. The silent command attention because they have never needed it in the first place. Words are available to everyone. Noise fills every corner of the modern world. But silence, deliberate, conscious, loaded silence, is sacred. It is inside silence that your mind sharpens to its finest edge. Your instincts wake up, and your presence begins to carry a weight that no sentence in any language could replicate. Most people destroy the authority they could naturally carry by simply talking too much. They reveal their plans before the plans are ready. They expose their emotional state to everyone watching. They scatter their energy across meaningless words and then wonder why people do not take them seriously. They believe that speaking more projects strength, but the more they speak without purpose, the more power they surrender without realizing it. You cannot command respect when you have not yet learned to command your own tongue. Silence is the physical expression of self-mastery. The person who can hold his words in check can hold his entire world in check. When you choose silence over speech as a deliberate practice, you become something that unsettles most people, unpredictable. And unpredictability is one of the most underrated forms of power available to any man. People cannot read what you have chosen not to reveal. They cannot position themselves against moves they cannot anticipate. That mystery creates a natural authority. It makes people watch you more closely rather than talk over you. The more consistent your silence, the more strength others instinctively project onto you. Because silence has mass. It has gravitational pull, and people instinctively move toward and respect whatever carries genuine weight. Understand this clearly. Speaking without purpose often originates in insecurity. The loud explain themselves endlessly because they need to be understood by others to feel confident. The strong stay silent because they have already understood themselves and require no confirmation from the outside. You do not need to justify your choices, argue for your worth, or convince anyone of your value. When you know what you bring to the table, you let results deliver the message. Results echo across time. Words fade within the same conversation. Every moment you hold silence when the world expects noise from you, you rise one more level above the ordinary. Silence is not emptiness. It is focus in visible form. It is the capacity to hear what the majority of people are too busy talking to notice. When you are silent, you observe with full attention. You learn what words obscure. You begin to see beneath what people say into what they actually mean and what they are actually afraid of. The talker surrenders secrets with every sentence. The listener collects them. The quietest person in any room is almost always the most informed, because while everyone else was filling the air with words, that person was gathering every piece of information the room was offering freely. There is enormous strength inside restraint. Every time you resist the automatic impulse to defend yourself, to argue back, or to explain your position when no one asked, you gain a measurable amount of strength. You protect your energy. You maintain your power, because every argument you enter extracts a cost in peace, and every word spoken without purpose drains power you could have used for something that matters. The greatest fighters do not enter every available conflict. They select the battles that are worth the investment. The same principle applies to words. Speak only when what you have to say carries the actual force to change something. Let silence fill the rest. People sense your energy before they process your words. When you move with calm and grounded confidence, people are aware of it before you open your mouth. Your stillness speaks. Your self-containment communicates. The man who does not rush to respond always controls the direction of the conversation, because the person who waits longest to speak is almost always the one who shapes the final outcome. In moments when someone deliberately provokes you, silence becomes the most powerful weapon in your possession. When someone disrespects you and you offer them nothing in return, you show them that their words have no real access to you. Nothing frustrates the insecure more completely than the absolute calm of a person who simply refuses to be rattled. Your composure is their confusion. Your restraint is their defeat. But silence is not only a weapon. It is also where creation lives. When you stop filling every available moment with noise and words and reaction, you begin to actually hear your own thinking clearly. Real ideas surface. Genuine inspiration becomes audible. The intuition that was always there, but buried under the noise, finally gets space to speak. Every great vision in human history was born in silence, not in the middle of distraction. Every thinker of consequence, every leader who shaped the direction of things, every creator who shaped the direction of things, every creator who built something lasting has understood the essential value of withdrawing from noise in order to listen to the deeper signal. The modern world has developed a specific fear of silence because silence forces honest confrontation with the truth. That is why everyone keeps producing and consuming endless noise, talking, posting, arguing, reacting, because the silence reveals what the noise was designed to cover. But you, if your genuine goal is to rise above what is ordinary, must develop the ability to sit inside silence and face what it shows you. That is where real discipline is built. That is where your actual purpose becomes unmistakably clear. When you become genuinely comfortable with silence, you stop requiring the approval that noise was always seeking on your behalf. Your tongue is among the most powerful forces you have access to. Misused, it destroys relationships, shatters trust, exposes weakness, and burns down everything that took years to build. One careless word spoken in the wrong moment can erase what 1,000 careful actions constructed. Guard your words as you would guard any weapon of that consequence. Use them only when they carry precision and deliberate purpose. Silence preserves your power in concentrated form. Every word you speak is a release of that concentration. Make each release count and make silence the default when it does not. People reveal the architecture of their character through the volume of their speech. The undisciplined fill every silence with their voice because they cannot tolerate what silence asks of them. The disciplined speak to deliver direction, not to fill space. You can measure the level of command any person holds over themselves by measuring the distance between their emotional state and the words that come out of their mouth. The shorter that distance, the less control. The longer they can hold the silence before responding, the deeper their capacity for self-governance. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is the most honest and powerful form of it. It announces without negotiation that your peace is not available for discussion. It tells everyone competing for your attention that their noise does not reach you at the level they hoped. And it tells your own mind with complete clarity who is actually in charge of this life. Practice holding back. Allow others to speak first. Let them place their thinking on the table, expose their emotional position, and reveal their intentions before you respond. You simply listen, observe, and learn. Then, when the moment arrives where your words will carry actual weight, speak with the full force of everything you gathered while staying silent. That is the difference between those who follow and those who lead. Not volume, restraint before response, silence over speech. Not because expression is something you fear, but because you have mastered it thoroughly enough to understand that your voice carries maximum force only when it is used sparingly. In a world that has become permanently saturated with noise, silence is genuinely the rarest and most powerful sound a man can produce. Stay quiet. Let your results do the announcing. Let your actions carry the message. Let your calm fracture the chaos that surrounds you. Because those who govern their words govern their entire world, and those who have mastered their silence have mastered themselves completely. See, lessons where others see insults. That is the specific mindset that separates the unshakable from everyone else. The entire gap between the weak and the wise exists inside their perception of the same event. The weak feel attacked by everything that challenges them. The wise see instruction in the same moment. Every insult you receive, every piece of criticism that lands in your direction, every rejection that finds you is carrying a hidden message wrapped in discomfort. It is a silent, specific invitation to develop something in yourself that is not yet fully formed. Life does not send you adversaries to destroy you. It sends you mirrors to reveal you. What offends you with the most force shows you exactly what you have not yet mastered. What triggers your anger points with precision toward the area where your control is still underdeveloped. If you can extract the lesson rather than ignite the reaction, you will rise while the people around you are drowning in their own emotion. People will insult you. They will doubt your direction, mock your vision, and consistently underestimate what you are building. That is simply unavoidable. But the gravest mistake available to you is to receive any of it personally. The moment you take something personally, you have transferred control of your emotional state to the very people who are attempting to diminish you. You have let their words occupy the most valuable real estate in your existence, which is your peace. You begin operating from reaction rather than from purpose. That is precisely what they wanted. They wanted your focus disrupted, your discipline weakened, your anger to surface and prove them right. You must be wiser than that. When disrespect arrives, do not rush to defend yourself. Observe instead. Ask yourself with genuine curiosity what this moment is attempting to teach you. Patience, humility, resilience. Every negative experience is a training session in disguise, precisely engineered for the development of your strength. Your greatest growth almost always lives directly behind your most intense irritation. Every insult that arrives presents two possible roads, reaction or reflection. Most people choose reaction without even registering that a choice was being made. They argue back, explain, raise their voice, and attempt to prove something. But that response only confirms that the insult achieves its goal. The wiser path is reflection, the pause, the analysis, the deliberate extraction of whatever the experience contains that can make you stronger. Growth becomes the response. Silence becomes the weapon, and the passage of time becomes the most complete vindication available to anyone. Understand this clearly. No insult has the power to define you unless you extend it that specific permission. If someone labels you as weak, that label functions as an insult only in the presence of your own insecurity about your strength. If you have absolute certainty about what you are, their words carry no more weight than noise in an empty room. An insult only adheres where there is already a gap. So when specific words sting with unusual sharpness, do not redirect your energy toward the person who said them. Redirect it toward the wound that made those words capable of stinging. Ask yourself what fear that comment activated, what ego position it challenged. That is exactly where your next level of development is waiting for you. The universe uses opposition to train the people who are intended to become exceptional. Pressure does not weaken steel. It forges it the most at immersion. It forges it. Every critic, every insult, every obstacle placed in your path is the sharpening instrument that your character requires. You are not being punished by any of this. Life tests you not to break your spirit, but to build the kind of endurance that cannot be faked or borrowed. The wise do not fear judgment from others. They harvest it, they convert criticism into clarity, and transform pain into power. That exact conversion is what separates the ones who rise from the ones who retreat when things become difficult. You must absorb this people direct attacks toward what threatens them. When you rise with consistent progress, you become an uncomfortable mirror for the people around you who are standing still. Your advancement reminds them of what they have chosen not to do, so they attack you not from strength, but from the discomfort of seeing their own reflection in your movement. Do not answer that with anger. That is exactly the response they were seeking. Answer it with silence and continued focus. Let your consistency become the argument that requires no words. Let your success teach the lesson they are refusing to learn from their own lives. When you permanently shift from seeing insults to seeing lessons, you develop a kind of mental armor that nothing external can penetrate. Nothing can genuinely destabilize you because everything teaches you. You stop fearing negativity because you have internalized the understanding that every attack feeds your evolution. Every rejection sharpens your direction. Every failure polishes your strength into a form that comfort never could. Pain stops being something personal that happens to you and becomes something purposeful that is happening for you. That is when your life reaches a level where it begins responding to your intentions rather than your reactions. The insult itself carries no inherent power. Your interpretation is what generates the power it seems to have. Two people can receive the exact same criticism. One breaks under the weight of it. The other builds something with it. The other builds something with it. The words themselves did not change. The mindset that received them was the entire variable. Powerful people do not ask why this is happening to them. They ask what it is showing them. That one shift in the framing of a question converts pain into fuel that nothing else can manufacture. You cannot prevent insults from coming, but you can transform every single one of them. Let every dismissal remind you of how focused your mission must be. Let every insult remind you that your energy is too precious to waste on noise. Let every critic become the specific motivation that drives you to develop so thoroughly that they eventually disappear inside your progress. Think of it like this. The same fire that turns wood to ash transforms iron into something that can last centuries. The difference is entirely in the material receiving the heat. Decide to be the iron. Allow insults to forge you rather than consume you. Every harsh word directed at you is heat. Use it to harden what needs hardening. When people attempt to pull you down, thank them quietly. They have just handed you another opportunity to rise higher than you were before. One day, the ones who insulted you will observe your success from a distance. They will remember exactly what they said, and you will remember how you stayed silent and kept building. That silence will be the most complete victory speech ever delivered. You did not waste time in reaction. You invested it in becoming someone their words could never reach. That is how people at the highest level operate. They do not fight every opinion that comes their way. They simply outgrow it entirely. Guard your mental gates because the mind is the fortress that houses everything you are building, and every form of peace and power you will ever possess. Everything you allow inside that fortress, every thought given space, every word absorbed, every image entertained, is actively shaping the person you are becoming. The majority of people lose their battles not because they were insufficiently strong, but because they left the gates completely unguarded. They allowed anything and anyone to walk freely into their most valuable space. They permitted negativity, self-doubt, gossip, and fear to slip in quietly and begin corroding their focus from the inside. You cannot construct anything worthy from an unguarded mind. The adversary was never primarily outside. It is what you allowed to settle inside. Your thoughts are the architects of your entire life. What you think repeatedly builds into what you believe at the deepest level. What you believe at the deepest level determines how you act in the world, and how you consistently act in the world. Then how you consistently act in the world builds your reality piece by piece over years. If your mind is perpetually saturated with noise, with endless comparison, with the quiet voice of self-doubt running in the background, you will never achieve the clarity required to see your life accurately. You cannot build peace on a foundation of mental chaos. You cannot build lasting strength while permitting weakness to narrate your inner experience all day long. The content you choose to consume, the conversations you engage with, the voices you grant access to, all of these are either reinforcing your fortress or dismantling it one brick at a time. Guarding your mental gates requires taking complete ownership of what receives your attention. Attention is energy in its most portable form. Energy is your most fundamental life resource. Every time you direct your attention toward gossip, you voluntarily reduce your focus. Every time you give your attention to fear, you voluntarily reduce your courage. Every time you point your attention at distraction, you lose the direction you were carrying. Discipline is not only about what you do with your body. It is about what you do with your body. It is about what you do with your attention. You become, over time, the sum total of what you repeatedly allow inside your mind. If someone arrived at your home carrying garbage and offered to dump it in your living room, you would stop them at the door without a moment of hesitation. So why do you allow people to enter your mind and deposit their negativity there without the same resistance? Why do you scroll through arguments, drama, and manufactured outrage, and then ask yourself why you feel drained and scattered? The world has a specific interest in occupying your thoughts. It wants you angry, reactive, distracted, and comparing yourself to everything you see. But if you are committed to rising, you must learn to close those gates with the same deliberateness you bring to any other form of protection. You must decide what earns space in your mind and what does not, and then you must enforce that decision consistently. Every morning when you wake up, those gates open. The choices you make in the first hour determine what enters. The media you engage with, the voices you follow, the conversations you choose to participate in, each one is either sharpening your instrument or dulling it. Be ruthless with your focus in a way that most people around you will not understand. Protect your energy as if the entire outcome of your life depends on the quality of your mental input, because it genuinely does. The quality of your life over decades is a direct reflection of the quality of your consistent thinking. The people in your life who operate primarily on negativity are mental thieves. Every complaint they bring, every drama they spread, every suggestion that your goals are unrealistic, these are all tests of your gates. Do not permit them entry. You can love people completely without granting them unlimited access to your peace. You can care for someone from a distance that protects what you are building. Protect your environment with the same ferocity you would apply to protecting anything irreplaceable. You cannot remain sharp when you are surrounded by the constant friction of dulling influences. Your self-talk is also a gate that requires guarding with urgency. The loudest and most persistent voice you will ever encounter is the one that runs inside your own head. What you consistently say to yourself, particularly in private moments when no external audience is present, determines the upper limit of what you will attempt and what you will achieve. Stop allowing your own mind to feed you narratives about what you cannot do or who you are not capable of becoming. Replace every weakening thought with a directed, honest, forward-looking alternative. The words you use inside your own mind construct either a prison or a palace. Build deliberately. Choose carefully. The architecture matters more than anything visible from the outside. Focus is the defining superpower of the current moment. The entire modern world has been architected to dissolve yours. Every platform, every notification, every piece of content competing for your attention is designed by people who understand that your focus, once captured, is worth everything. But when you develop the discipline to reject that architecture and stay locked on your purpose, you become something that the distracted world genuinely cannot compete with. While others are bleeding their energy into drama and comparison, you are compounding your advantage in silence. While others are feeding their minds with entertainment designed to keep them comfortable and passive, you are feeding yours with the understanding and capacity that builds real outcomes. That difference does not reveal itself in days or even months. It reveals itself in decades, and it is absolute. Guarding your mental gates also requires what might be called mental fasting. Just as a body that never rests from consumption develops serious problems, a mind that never fests from noise becomes saturated and loses its capacity for clear original thought. Spend time in genuine silence. Disconnect from the inputs that normally compete for your attention. Walk without earphones. Sit without screens. Let your mind breathe without direction for a period each day. You cannot hear your own authentic thinking when the world maintains a constant volume above it. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is the condition in which real clarity becomes possible. It is in those quiet spaces that ideas of genuine consequence form, that vision strengthens, and that direction becomes undeniable. Guarding the gates also means applying a filter to your emotions before they become actions. Do not allow anger to function as your primary instructor. Do not permit fear to serve as your compass through difficult decisions. Feel both of those things fully when they arise because they are carrying information. But do not feed them additional energy beyond what is needed to receive the message. Emotions are the signals. A guarded mind receives the signal, extracts the information, and then decides the response. A mind without guards receives the signal and lets it become the entire response. The difference between those two modes of operation is the difference between living by choice and living by accident. Remember this with complete seriousness. Whoever controls your attention controls your life. Every entity competing for your focus, every critical voice, every source of manufactured anxiety, every platform designed to keep you scrolling, they all want one specific thing from you, your focus. Because once they possess your focus, they hold the capacity to shape your thinking, direct your buying, and influence the story you tell yourself about who you are. Do not distribute your focus carelessly. It is sacred. Give it exclusively to the things that are genuinely aligned with your purpose, your growth, and your peace. Build your mental gates high and reinforce them with daily practice. Grant nothing entry without examination. No negativity, no sustained self-doubt, no fear that was not earned by actual evidence. Let only the inputs that serve your discipline, your gratitude, your clarity, and your vision walk through those gates, because what you allow inside will take root, and those roots will determine your future more completely than any external circumstance ever could. When your mind is clean, your spirit becomes capable of real strength. When your mind maintains its focus, your life develops genuine direction. When your mind is protected by deliberate and consistent gates, peace stops being occasional and becomes the baseline. No storm that arrives from outside can shake a fortress constructed entirely from within. Build those walls, strengthen those gates, post silence and awareness as your standing guard, because when you lose control of your mind, you lose everything. But when you master it, nothing and no one that exists outside of you can break what you have become. Train your mind every single day. The mind is not a fixed instrument that arrived fully formed. It is a muscle that develops in direct proportion to the demands placed on it. If you do not train it deliberately, it will weaken. If you do not direct it with intention, it will direct you. Every day, you are either developing mental strength or feeding mental weakness, and there is no neutral position between those two outcomes. Most people invest enormous effort into training their bodies, pursuing financial resources, and engineering their external comfort. But they consistently neglect the most powerful instrument they possess. The untrained mind is the actual origin of chaos, self-doubt, and repeated failure. The trained mind is where real power lives, where peace is manufactured, and where every meaningful victory begins. Your mind determines everything. How you think shapes what you see. How you react shapes what people experience from you. How you see yourself shapes every ceiling you will ever encounter. The untrained mind becomes your most dangerous adversary because it operates against your interests from the inside. Undisciplined thoughts become the breeding ground for the fear that stops you from moving. The trained mind becomes your most reliable ally because it executes your decisions rather than sabotaging them. Like every instrument of real power, it produces remarkable outcomes in the right hands and destructive outcomes when mishandled. The hands that most commonly mishandle it are your own, in moments of undisciplined reaction and permitted weakness. Every thought you give consistent space to becomes a seed. Negative thoughts that are watered with repetition grow into fear. Fear that is not challenged grows into paralysis. Paralysis that is rationalized grows into a permanently smaller life. But thoughts of strength, clarity, gratitude, and deliberate direction, given the same consistent attention, grow into the confidence and the decisive action that build everything worth building. What you plant in the soil of your mind repeatedly becomes your reality over time. Guard what you plant. Guard what you water. The harvest will be precise and honest regardless of your wishes. Mental training begins before the day makes contact with you. Before the world sends its first message, you must have already set your direction. Speak strength into your thinking before the noise begins competing for it. Remind yourself with complete clarity who you are, what you are committed to, and what you are actively building. Because if you do not command your mind in the first moments of the day will command it instead. The strongest warriors in every field win the internal battle long before the external one begins. They have already rehearsed their response to difficulty before the difficulty arrives. Training the mind requires feeding it inputs that build rather than ones that deplete. What enters your mind through what you watch, what you read, and what you listen to becomes your mental diet. If you saturate your mind with manufactured fear, petty conflicts, and narratives designed to keep you small, you are actively starving your potential. But if you feed it with knowledge that expands your capacity, wisdom that sharpens your judgment, and truth that challenges your comfortable assumptions, you are building something formidable. Your life reflects your mental diet with the same honesty that your body reflects your physical one. You cannot produce focused, purposeful output from an input stream of distraction and noise. A trained mind develops the discipline to focus exclusively on what falls within your control and release everything that does not. Most people exhaust enormous amounts of energy worrying about outcomes they cannot influence, opinions they cannot change, and scenarios they cannot predict. That energy expenditure produces nothing. A trained mind sees reality clearly, accepts the elements of it that are fixed, and directs every available unit of energy toward the specific variables that your actions can actually change. That is genuine power. Not reacting to every development that arrives, but selecting with precision what deserves your response. Daily mental training means pushing your mental endurance past its current edge. Step outside the comfortable range of your thinking. Deliberately pursue difficulty because comfort produces atrophy in the mind the same way inactivity produces it in the body. Every time you take the easier cognitive path, you lose a layer of mental capacity. Every time you face genuine mental difficulty without retreating, you gain depth that compounds over time. The mind grows in response to resistance. Without regular challenge, it begins shrinking in silence, and you will not notice it happening until the capacity is already gone. When you commit to daily mental training, you develop something that most people never achieve: genuine emotional governance. Moods will still arrive. Fear will still knock at the door. Doubt will still visit. But none of them will be permitted to stay and make decisions. The untrained mind lets every emotion direct its actions. The trained mind treats emotions as information to be examined rather than commands to be obeyed. You do not run from discomfort. You study it. You learn what it contains. You use it. Pain stops being a captor and starts being a coach. That transformation is one of the most significant available to any person. Your self-talk is the training ground. What you say to yourself repeatedly, particularly in difficulty, is either building your capacity or reducing it. The untrained mind tells itself stories of inadequacy. The trained mind tells itself the truth, which is that growth is in process and the trajectory matters more than the current position. You cannot govern every external event, but you can always govern the narrative you construct about it. What you repeat to yourself becomes what you believe. What you believe becomes who you are. The story is always in your hands. Your mental training is tested most completely when the external conditions are hardest. That is by design. You cannot build real mental strength during easy periods. The difficulty is the gym. Every disappointment that you face with deliberate discipline. Every rejection that you process without retreating. Every setback that you convert into usable information rather than paralyzing grief. Each one adds a layer of mental density that cannot be acquired any other way. Every time you choose to stand with discipline inside pain rather than running from it, you rewrite what you are capable of at the identity level. That is not metaphor. That is the mechanics of how human character is actually formed. Train your mind every day toward the specific pursuit of peace rather than perfection, toward recognizing opportunity where others can only see obstacle, toward creating something from what is present rather than complaining about what is missing. The mind becomes what it consistently practices. Repetition is the mechanism of transformation. A single meditation session produces nothing lasting. A single day of focus changes nothing permanent. It is the daily consistency, maintained especially on the days when you least want to maintain it, that transforms the raw material of who you are into the person your goals require you to become. Solitude is one of the most powerful instruments available for mental training. Spend real time alone with your thinking. Observe what arises without the distraction of external stimulation. Learn to sit inside stillness without manufacturing reasons to escape it. The more capable you become in solitude, the more completely unaffected you become in crowds. Most people avoid being alone because genuine solitude requires confronting your own mind without distraction serving as a buffer. But solitude is the specific training ground where focus, patience, and sense of purpose are developed to their deepest level. Hold your mind to standards the way a serious leader holds a team to standards. Refuse to permit laziness, fear, or negativity to cross your mental threshold unchallenged. Be your own commander. Override the voice that says, stop by continuing. Override the voice that says, impossible by moving anyway. Every time you override a weakness, you revise who you are at the level that matters. That is how genuine mental toughness is constructed. Not in comfort, in resistance, not in ease, in the deliberate confrontation with your own limitations. Your mind will either build your life or dismantle it. Every success you will ever achieve will begin as a thought. Every failure in your life also began as one. You cannot change your outcomes until you change the quality of your thinking. And you cannot change your thinking until you take the training of your mind as seriously as any other form of preparation you would apply to something that matters. So wake up every day and do the work of governing your mind. Challenge the thoughts that weaken, strengthen the ones that build, filter the input, govern the self-talk. Train it with the consistency of someone who understands that this instrument is the foundation of everything else. Train until your mind obeys your will rather than your fears. Train until your emotions inform you without controlling you. Train until no failure can permanently break your momentum. No insult can reach the part of you that decides, and no challenge can defeat what your mind has already committed to overcoming. Train your mind every day, because if you do not, someone or something will train it for you, and the one who trains your mind holds the controls of your life. Expect nothing from other people, because the moment expectation appears, you have handed your peace to someone else to manage. You have given the people around you the remote control to your emotional state. Expectation is one of the most quietly destructive forces operating in most people's lives. It creates the internal belief that other people are obligated to offer you understanding, loyalty, recognition, or care. But the truth beneath all of that is that no one owes you anything. Not love, not respect, not support, not acknowledgement. The world is not structured to bend itself toward your unspoken hopes. It responds to your actions and to your energy. And freedom, genuine freedom, begins the day you release the need for any of it. When you operate from expectation, you are living inside an illusion. You construct it alone. You build elaborate mental models of how people should behave toward you, how they should show up, how they should respond, how they should honor what you have given. And when reality declines to match that model, the gap between the mental version and the actual version becomes a source of anger, resentment, and a sense of betrayal. But the people in your life did not fail you. They simply never agreed to the script you were running. You gave them a role they never auditioned for, and then held them accountable for the performance. The problem was never their behavior. The problem was the power you gave them over your emotional experience. Peace is not produced by people meeting your expectations. Peace is produced by you mastering your responses to what they actually do. The world will operate on its own terms. People will change their priorities. Commitments will dissolve. Help will fail to arrive in your most critical moments. Each of those events is a test of your capacity to stand independently. The most powerful individuals are not the ones with the most support surrounding them. They are the ones who have learned to generate their own stability regardless of whether support is present. When you expect nothing from others, you become impervious to disappointment at the structural level. When gratitude replaces expectation as your operating mode, the entire texture of your experience shifts. Every small gesture from another person becomes something to genuinely appreciate rather than something that barely meets the minimum. When you stop placing demands on the behavior of the world, you start noticing the gifts that were always present but invisible because your expectation was consuming all the available attention. The person who expects nothing cannot be disappointed. They can only be surprised, and those surprises carry a quality of genuine pleasure that the expectation-driven life never produces. It means you no longer need the behavior of specific people to remain intact inside yourself. You have claimed that stability as your own creation. Expectations are rooted in ego at the most fundamental level. The ego says, I earned this treatment. They owe me this response. But life does not operate according to the ego's accounting system. Life responds to energy, to effort, to the quality of what you build and what you give. When you are focused outward, waiting for what you are owed, you are directing your attention at the wrong source entirely. The mind without training seeks validation from the outside. The trained mind seeks internal progress. The entire difference between chronic frustration and sustained fulfillment lies in the direction that your primary attention moves. When you redirect from seeking to growing, you discover that the need you were filling externally was always something you had the capacity to generate from within. The greatest freedom available to any human being arrives with the realization that you require nothing outside yourself to be complete, capable, and at peace. You can work without requiring applause. You can give without requiring reciprocation. You can love without requiring the love to be returned in the specific form you imagined. That is a level of inner power that virtually no manipulation, disappointment, or betrayal can access. The person who operates from that position cannot be controlled by offering or withholding the things they previously needed. You become genuinely autonomous, self-sourced, and from that position, everything you build is built on a foundation that nothing outside you can remove. Every disappointment you have ever experienced began as an expectation that reality declined to satisfy. You expected loyalty from people who were only ever capable of convenience. You expected transparency from people who were lying to their own reflection. You expected sustained effort from people who had never developed the capacity for it. You expected sustained effort from people who had never developed the capacity for it. You expected depth from people who had decided to remain in the shallow end. And when those gaps appeared, it was because you assigned them a capability they did not possess. Expecting the sun to rise from the west is not the West's failure. It is a misunderstanding of how the sun moves. Instead of expecting, observe. Watch carefully how the people in your life behave when there is nothing to gain from behaving well. See who remains present when the benefits that previously attached to your relationship disappear. Observation produces wisdom. Expectation produces pain. When you release expectation, you gain the ability to see reality as it actually is, rather than as you have been hoping it will be. That clarity is a form of peace, because peace is not found in people becoming what you need them to be. It is found in accepting what they are and choosing your relationship with that reality from a position of genuine freedom. This does not mean withdrawing from caring about people or detaching from your connections. It means removing the condition from your giving. It means helping because it aligns with your values rather than because it will generate a specific return. It means loving without building the love on the expectation of a specific form of reciprocation. When your actions originate from your purpose, rather than from a calculation of what you will receive, you become unlimited in your capacity to give without depletion. Expect nothing from others, but place every expectation that exists squarely on yourself. Expect yourself to show up when it is difficult. Expect yourself to maintain your discipline when the appeal of comfort is highest. Expect yourself to stand again after every failure with less delay each time, because the expectations that build a life worth building are the ones you direct inward toward your own performance, not outward toward the performance of others. Hold yourself to standards that most people would not accept for themselves. The world consistently rewards those who demand their own best without requiring the world to meet them halfway. Each time you reduce what you expect of others, you expand your peace in direct proportion. You stop chasing apologies from people who do not possess the self-awareness to offer them. You stop waiting for recognition from people who would feel diminished by giving it, resents from people who would feel diminished by giving it. You stop exhausting yourself on people who assess your effort by what it costs them to acknowledge it. Driven by purpose rather than by approval. And that shift from external fuel to internal fuel is one of the most significant transformations available to any person. Remember that people change. What someone was capable of giving last year, they may not be capable of giving now. Circumstances shift in ways no one controls. Commitments made with genuine intentions still dissolve. None of this is about you. None of it is evidence of your worth or your value. The person who anchors their stability to other people's consistency is building on sand. But the person who anchors their stability to their own inner development is building on something that the behavior of others cannot disturb. When you expect nothing from people, you become unable to be meaningfully offended. Disrespect loses the weight it carried before because you no longer require their respect to maintain your sense of value. Criticism loses its sting because your worth is not located in their assessment of you. You have reclaimed every piece of yourself that you were previously distributing to others for safekeeping. That is why the most internally powerful people are often also the most externally peaceful. They learn to expect nothing from the world, and therefore nothing the world does can strip them of what they have built inside. Make this your practice starting now. Give generously. Help with full sincerity, love without reservation, and expect absolutely nothing in return from any of it. Trust that the energy you release without condition will return through doors and channels you did not plan for. The universe has never failed to return invested energy. It simply does not return it through the specific person or in the specific form your expectation was demanding. Release the expectation and you release the restriction on how and when and through whom the return can arrive. Expect nothing from people and everything from the power that lives within you. Operate from that position and you move from a life of dependence to a life of genuine dominance over your own experience. Forgive fast and move even faster. Every grudge you hold, every resentment you maintain, every memory of being wronged that you replay without releasing becomes a weight attached to your mind. You imagine you are punishing whoever hurt you by refusing to forgive, but they are not carrying the weight. You are. Forgiveness is not a gesture of approval toward what was done. It is a strategic act of intelligence. It is the decision to stop granting yesterday authority over today. Every hour you continue to carry the pain of a specific betrayal, that hour belongs to the past rather than to your future. The past does not deserve your hours. Forgiveness does not alter what happened. It does not validate the person who caused the damage or suggest that what they did was acceptable. It simply announces that you are finished allowing that event to hold its position between you and where you are going. You are not saying the wound did not exist. You are saying it is no longer permitted to determine your direction, because every minute spent replaying the original offense is a minute redirected away from your destiny. You cannot move with full speed toward what is ahead while you are still carrying what is behind. The weight of unforgiven pain is not visible, but it is constant, and it is always slowing you down. When you commit to forgiving fast, you break the emotional cycles that quietly destroy potential across years. You stop the internal replaying of old conversations. You stop the energy drain of maintaining active resentment. You stop constructing current decisions from the distorted frame of past wounds. You begin to operate from the present with the full energy that the past has been consuming. What is done is finished. What comes next belongs entirely to you. Feed it everything you have been spending on the past. Forgiveness is a declaration of personal power that most people mistake for concession. It says clearly, What you did may have affected me, but it will not own me. That is not weakness. That is the mindset of every person who ever rebuilt something significant from the remains of something that was destroyed. They absorbed the impact. They extracted the scloters thing, they extracted the slesson, they moved. The ones who wronged you were serving a function in your development, whether they intended to or not. They showed you what you were capable of surviving. They showed you who you can trust and who you cannot. They revealed something about your own interior architecture that comfort would never have exposed. That is not nothing. That deserves acknowledgement, even if only in silence, as you move past it. Many people spend significant portions of their lives waiting for closure that no one is coming to deliver. They wait for an apology that would finally give them permission to stop hurting. They wait for an explanation that would make the betrayal make sense. They wait for some form of external justice that will balance the ledger, but that wait is the trap. Closure is not delivered to you. It is created by you the moment you decide to stop requiring it from any external source. The person who wounded you may never understand the depth of what they caused. That is not your problem to solve. Your mission is progress, not resolution from people who may never be capable of providing it. Move fast after you forgive, not because what happened did not matter, but because your future matters more than relitigating your past. Every day you delay the forward movement out of loyalty to a pain that is already finished is a day borrowed from the life you are actually supposed to be building. The people who wounded you are not pausing their lives while you process the wound. Time moves for them exactly as it moves for you. The question is never whether time will pass. The question is always what you will have built when it does. The practice of forgiving fast does not mean you invite the same people back into the same positions of access and trust. Wisdom draws clear lines about who belongs in your life and in what capacity. You can forgive someone completely while also understanding with equal completeness that they do not belong in your daily proximity. Forgiveness is about your internal freedom. Boundaries are about your ongoing protection. Both are necessary. Both are the decisions of a person who respects their own peace enough to manage it deliberately. Let go of the story that the wound defined you. You are not the accumulation of what was done to you. You are the sum of what you chose to build from it. The most powerful identities in human history were forged in betrayal, loss, failure, and pain, not despite those things, but because of how the person who experienced them refused to let those experiences become their permanent address. Pain is a location you pass through. It is not a place you set up residence. Move through it with speed. Extract what it contains. Then keep moving toward what you came here to build. Forgive the people who did not know better. Forgive the ones who did know better and made the choice anyway. Forgive the circumstances that arrived without warning and altered your direction without your permission. And most importantly, forgive yourself for the decisions you made before you knew what you now know. Self-forgiveness is where the deepest healing begins. The harshest judge you will ever face is the one inside your own mind. Release the verdict it has been delivering. Growth requires that you be a fair witness to yourself, neither permitting weakness without accountability nor punishing past versions of yourself for what they could not yet see. Here is the complete picture of everything that has been delivered in this message. Control begins within you and belongs to no one else. Detach from every reaction that does not serve your direction. Silence is the most powerful language available to the truly strong. See lessons in every insult and grow specifically where it stings. Guard your mental gates with the same seriousness you would apply to protecting anything irreplaceable. Train your mind every single day because it is the instrument that determines everything. Expect nothing from others and everything from yourself. Forgive fast and move even faster. These are not separate ideas. They are one complete system. They work together as the architecture of a man who cannot be permanently shaken, manipulated, or stopped by any external force. Every piece supports the others. When your control is solid, your detachment is easier. When you are detached, your silence becomes natural. When you see lessons, your guard strengthens. When your mental gates are maintained, your training deepens. When your training is consistent, expectation dissolves. And when expectation dissolves, forgiveness becomes immediate because there was nothing owed and nothing lost. The man who builds this system inside himself becomes something the world rarely encounters and never forgets. He moves with a quiet authority that does not require explanation. He gives without calculating the return. He builds without needing the world's permission. He forgives without waiting for the apology. He remains composed in every storm because the storm has no access to where his real stability lives. He trains his mind every morning, guards his attention every hour, and moves through every setback with a speed that most people mistake for indifference, but is actually the deepest form of respect for his own time and potential. You did not arrive at this moment by accident. The fact that you are here, listening to this, building towards something that matters, that is not coincidence. That is the first evidence of the control you are in the process of claiming. The work begins now, not tomorrow, not when conditions align, not when you feel completely ready. Now, because the only moment that has ever been available to any person who built something real was exactly this one, this specific, unrepeatable, fully available moment right here. So take it, command it, build from it, and refuse to let anything inside you or outside you convince you that you were not built for exactly the life you have been imagining. You were. Now go build it.